Okay, so in the last video, we went ahead and we did the line work and we added the details to the leaves and the petals. We talked about some of the different variants we can do. Now, there's one thing I did. This is specific to when we're doing it in digital rather than paper. I put all the elements, the details on a separate layer. That'll make it easier for selection when we come to colour it. If you're doing this by hand on paper with pen and paper or pencil or whatever, don't worry about that. That's just for this purpose. So when we were to, if we were to colour this in a realism, in the style of realism, we'd have to be thinking of light sources. We'd be thinking about where it needs to be dark, where it needs to be light, where it'd get bounce, like where it'd get shadows, and all these type of ideas. In a more of an old school, traditional format, we can largely ignore most of these. The black is obviously going to be the most important colour. The black will hold the piece together, it'll give it weight, and it'll make it look readable. So generally, what I like to do is I use the black to separate the elements. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to hide these detail lines for the moment because they're not needed. So we're going to start looking at where we need to be adding the black for the shading. So I'm taking my fuzzy select tool right now, and we're going to start. We'll just start in one of these leaves, just for an example. Now, there's different ways we can shade the leaves. I'm going to show you a basic way we can do it. So I've just selected both these areas together, made a macro that just increases the selection by a pixel every time. If you don't do that, when you come to the shading, you'll have an annoying little white line around the edge of it. So just bear that in mind. So I'm putting the black shading on a different layer than the black lining. That way I can separate it, I can work with it differently. I can, if I need to change anything, then we can, it's easy to change. Okay, so I've gone back to my tool. I'm just going to pick up the paintbrush now, again with a black. I'm just going to see what size it is. That looks about a good size. So all I'm doing is we're taking the paintbrush, sorry, the spray can. If this was the edge, as we can see, this is the edge of the leaf. This is where the petal would meet it. I'm just going to throw some black in there just to separate off. We're not going all the way up. We're not colouring the whole leaf in black. We don't need to. So I've done this as one part here. So both sides of the leads count together. We could do a little bit here, a little bit there. I'll show you that now. So we go back onto our layer here, select it, grow it, and go back to our black layer. So I could take my paintbrush, my spray can. I could do half that leaf and leave this top here, and I could do the same on that one if I wanted. I generally find in this style, if I'm doing that, it doesn't leave too much space to put colour in before, and it looks it looks kind of cluttered. So I tend to stick to it as one leaf as the whole element. So let's go ahead and select these two areas again. We select and we grow it twice. I'm going back to my paintbrush tool. I'm just going to put some black in the end there. We could do it the other way. We could put some black from the tips if we so wished. Yeah, that's another way to do it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go select the. I can do some of these leaves in one go. I mean, these two leaves here, we're going to put a whole bunch of black, so we can select them all together. Go to selection, go onto our black layer, take up our paintbrush. I forgot this little part here, so we'll just take care of that. Select that, grow the selection. Just throw some black in there. So same again, we're just selecting the areas, throwing some black in. If we zoom out here, we deselect, we can see here that this black is separating this leaf from here. So we can see these definite leaves have got the edge here, and this one here is sitting underneath it. That's what the black's giving it. It's giving it the depth and the layers. So we're just going to go ahead. Select here. Again, these we can select all these together because they're not interfering with anything. Go to the selection. Just some black in the edge here. And just roll it out there. And all I'm using is a basic spray can brush here. Nothing fancy, no textures or anything on it. If we were then to deselect everything and turn the lines back on, if we'd have tried to do this selection with these detail lines on the same layer, we'd have to select in between each one of these lines individually, and it would have been a pain. So keeping those details on a separate line, a separate layer, sorry, just makes that whole selection process there a bunch easier. Now with the petals, it's the same process as we did with the leaves. So I'm just going to turn these off again. So all we're doing is we're looking at the different leaves, different petals, sorry. So we're going to take this one here. Now if I try to do this one and this one together, when I colour here, it's going to roll onto here. So I generally try to separate them and pick a few at a time that aren't near each other. So I can do those three at the same time. Now I'm not putting tremendous amounts of black in them here. Just a little bit to separate. You see the black here sits around the edge of this turnover as well. That'll help give it some more clarity. Back onto a layer here. So I can take this one, and I can take this one, and I can take this one. Now generally I try to look for the corners. That's where it's going to need the most definition and separation. So for example here, I wouldn't generally put some black here. I'd more be likely to put it here. And same on this one here. I'd be more looking for here, or this curve here. I wouldn't be looking maybe just on its own there. So we've only got 4 leaves, sorry, left to go. Petals even. So some black there, some black there, and some black here. There we go. So far, apart from the centre here, we're going to deal with that a little bit differently. That's all the black, the petals and the leaves that I will be putting on this piece for the moment. Now, this central part, if you try to put a bit of black, a bit of black, a bit of black, it could look a little bit muddy and a little bit confusing. So, especially if you're trying to put a tiny amount of black here and then try to get some colour in it, it wouldn't leave much space. It'd be very, very tight up. Again, with this part here, it'd be very tight. So we have a couple of options here. We could either make this central part a lot darker and put a lot of black in it, or we could leave the black out the central part. Personally, I'm just going to put a little bit of black here and a little bit of black here just to give some separation between this turnover of the leaf. Again, you can try what you want with it. If you think it looks good, if you think maybe some parts got too much black in it, you know, you can, especially when we're doing it digitally, we can go back, we can undo it, we can try again. So that's all I'm going to stick in there, just to, you can see, just to separate these parts here, so that we can see this is a turnover and it's coming out. So let's recenter our piece. I can zoom in a bit as well. So what we're going to look at now is the colouring of the flower. Again, flowers can be any colour we really like. Now, traditionally roses are red, so that's what I'm going to stick with now. But as we can see, we've got essentially two faces of the petals now. The leaves, obviously, we're all seeing just the same face on each time. The petals, we've got this side facing us, and we've got the turnovers. We've got a turnover here. We've got a different face here. So generally, we could use red for the one colour. These turnovers could be done, you know, we could do them in yellow. We could put a bit of blue in it. We could put purple. We can put a bunch of different colours. I'm going to stick with some red and a little bit of blue in these. I think the red and the blue looks good together. So we're just going to pick a red colour. I'm going to make another layer. Now, when we're doing this digitally, the way layers work, anything that's above something will be painted over the top of it. So if I was to paint my red underneath the black would sit on top of it. If I did it the other way around, the red will cover over the black. At the moment, my line works underneath, so essentially we need to that needs to be on the top. Seems we've got a fleet of motorbikes going by. Sorry for the noise in the background. So we turn our details off because we don't need them for the moment. So there's our black on and off. So we're going to stick another layer we've got right here. This is going to be our red. So we're going to do some selecting now. Again, the same way we did the blacks, we're looking at colours that we're going to select that aren't going to interfere with each other. So I'm going to pick one here. One here, one here. So anything I colour here isn't going to roll over onto the other ones. So again, we'll take our spray can tool and we're just going to start building up. Now, it doesn't matter if this red's too bright. When we do it digitally, we can edit the colours. And there's a bunch of ways we can do the leaves. Now, a very old school way would just be all the leaves red and just the tiniest edge we leave uncoloured. So, like so. And that works, it looks good. It gives us the effect that there's light bouncing off the leaf, and it gives it some, off the petal, sorry, and it gives it some dimension. Now there's a few other ways we can do it, which are more of a new schooly way. If we do a little bit of red here, and we give it this semicircular shaped, and we do it inverse there, it leaves this highlight which gives the petal a rounded over and more 3D effect. I quite like this, so I'm going to, for this particular one, that's what I'm going to do. See, we're just giving it that rounded effect. If you're doing this with pens, or if you're doing it with ink, if you're doing it with acrylic inks, which I quite like, again, just see how I'm doing it. We'd put the red down, we'd fade it a little bit, we'd put the red down, we'd fade it a little bit, and we just leave this bar. You know, we don't want them, if we bring them too down like that, it doesn't really get the effect. But we don't want to leave it too wide. You know, if we look like this, the bar effect is way too wide. So we just do that until we get it where we think looks good. And again, this doesn't have to go all the way across to the edge. If you feel you only want to bring part of it and give a highlight on part of it, you know, that's fine, that works as well. You know, that looks good. So we're going to deselect everything. And we're going to choose some other leaves, other petals that won't interfere with each other. So we can take this one, we can take this one, and we can take this one. We can also take this one at the same time. Let's go back to our red layer, pick up our paintbrush. Like I was saying with the example I gave here, as we've got the turnover here, we wouldn't essentially see this light curve. So if we leave the bar going not all the way across, and it kind of disappears a little bit in this turnover. Okay, that one's gone a bit too close. So again, when we do it digitally, we can go back and have another go. There you go. I like that one. There you go. Got a bar there. And we've got this one here. We can. Got the bar going across there, and we can see it starts to give the petals this 3D rolled over effect. Now, to start with, if you were to just do them flat red, they would look very flat. They'd have no curvature. They'd have no life to them. They wouldn't look very interesting. So let's go back to our selection tool. We're gonna pick up these last few ones now. Back into our red. Now I can do these two together because they're kind of close to each other, and they're kind of going in a similar type shape. Now on the inside here, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to deselect everything. We're going to take our fuzzy selection brush again. I'm going to do these three separately, and I'm going to do these two so with a paintbrush. We're just going to leave a slight edge on the outside, which isn't solid red. And then we're going to do the same down this edge with the other two. So we're going to deselect everything. Take our fuzzy tool again. Grow the selection. Go to our paintbrush. Just down the edge. Those little edge highlights. So now we've got to decide what we're going to be doing with these open edges, these turnovers. So we're going to make another layer. I'm going to pick a kind of icy blue colour. I don't want it too dark, that would be way too dark, and this would be edging too much on the green. So kind of a, yeah, somewhere like that, that'll be good. So we're going to get our fuzzy selection tool again. We're going to start with these edges. Now I can take this one, but I can't take these two together because this one will start edging onto here if I do it that way. So back to our tool. All I'm going to do, just on the edge, I'm going to leave the highlights like we did on the inside here. Just going to throw a little bit. That's maybe a bit too much. Just a little bit. I'm going to leave that edge open. So we're going to deselect everything. Take that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to grow the selection and go back to our blue layer. Same thing, just a little bit down the edge. Now these two, I'm just going to take some blue on the inside as well. to our paintbrush on the blue layer. Just throw a little bit of blue in there. Now I might look at this part here. Obviously we've got the detail lines. We could go in and fill each one of those separately and do a little edge there and a little edge there and a little edge there. But when it comes to, if this was to become a tattoo design, that would be very fiddly. It'd be a lot more effort than it's worth. It still looks good like this. We still get the idea that it's got the edges in it. We've still got the blue to give it some contrast. So now we're going to move on to the leaves. Again, with the leaves, we could do them in many, many different ways. There's so many things we could do with the leaves. I'm going to do them a bit basic for this version. I'll show you a couple of variants we can do on them, but I'm going to keep them fairly basic for the moment. So we're going to have another layer, which is going to be our green. So let's find a nice green. We don't want something too dark, but we don't want something too bright. I think somewhere around there is what I'm after. So back to our selection tool. Deselect everything first. Fuzzy selection tool. Now these leaves, we can pretty much, with the exception of this one, we can pick them all at the same time. Turn those details off for the moment. So going on our green layer, and again like before, we're just going to roll it in. We're going to move that down a layer so it's not interfering with our black. It's not overwriting our black. I'm going to leave a bit of the edge that's not coloured, just for the moment. Okay, we need to just pick up this last leaf here. Go back to one green layer on our paintbrush. Just throw some green in. Now we could leave the leaves like that, just with the white tips. And that looks good, it looks fine. Another variant we could do is we'll make another layer. We'll just make sure that's below the green. We can do this variant, so the tips could be many different colours. You know, with the green you could do them yellow, which I quite like. Some people do them with purple. Some people do them with a browny colour. Again, it's your preference. You can change around and see what colours you like. I'm going to go with a yellow for this version because I plan to put some yellow in these circles here as well. So just to have a bit more consistency with colours. So what we're going to do, back to our fuzzy selection tool. So as we've got the yellow layer under the green layer, we can pick all of the leaves at the moment. So let's go back up here. All leaves and the circles in the middle here. Okay, that's everything. Grow the selection. Yeah, there we go. That's our yellow layer. And all we're going to do, throw that yellow underneath. Now, if you wanted to, you could do a darker green from fade from the black to a darker green to the lighter green to the yellow, if you so wish. That works well. It's a little bit more time consuming, but it still looks good. So essentially, we could deselect everything, and that could be our piece finished. Fully coloured, fully rendered, details and lines. There's one last little part I like to do. So I'm going to take this layer, make another layer. I'm just going to pick another colour. In this case, I'm going to go for a purple colour. That'll do. And what we're going to do is take our fuzzy selection tool, select everything on the outside now. Again, grow the selection twice. I'm going to take our paintbrush. I'm going to make it a fairly large paintbrush this time. We're going to deselect that. I've selected on the wrong layer there. Line work, fuzzy selection. Take the outside, grow it twice. Onto this layer. I'm just going to put a little bit of a, this is a more of a new schooly thing to be putting it. Just little bursts of purple around the edges here. Wherever you think will just help it out. I think that's all we need there. So we can select none. And essentially that's our piece finished. So as we can see, from start to finish, a very loose design, starting with the bud in the middle, adding a few layers of petals coming out, throwing some leaves in, and then some colour in. We went from something very loose into a finished piece. This could be tattooed, this could be used as a design, this could be used as an illustration. You could, you know, throw it onto a picture of some sort if you so wished. It could also be just printed out and used for flash sheet for the wall. Just going to save that so we don't lose it. There we go, from start to finish. That's how we draw a traditional / neo-traditional rose and colour it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you again soon. Okay, so that's the final process of how I come to creating this image. If you did follow along and you created something similar or had some ideas and went off on your own path, let me know in the comments. Put some links to your pictures. I'd love to see what you did. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll be making some more videos in the future. If there's anything you want to see, send me a message or let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do.